Chapter 7 Common Knowledge Breaker. It was the next day, and Arina-san had safely made a full recovery. Since this morning, I've been sitting in the yard and concentrating. Just to be on the safe side, I'm making Arina-san rest for today, and Noelle and Dee are busy with the housework, so there's nobody around. What I was about to do is a bit unconventional, so it's just the right time for it. I realized it the other day, but the fact is that I should have questioned the common knowledge of the world. Before I knew it, there I was thinking about the common knowledge of my previous life and of this world together. The world where science had advanced and magic does not exist. The world where chemistry had not developed and magic existed. It is natural for a disparity to arise. It takes me 3 years to realize something so obvious. In high spirits from being able to use magic, it seems that before I realized it, I was washed away by this world's common knowledge. For me to have been affected in such a way, how careless of me. In this world, there are 3 kinds of methods for lighting a fire. First, using fire attribute magic. Second, using a magic tool. Third, using a fire stone. There is an exception. Using a demon that emits fire. However, the standard methods are the 3 mentioned above. They're the mainstream and are common knowledge. Still unable to comprehend making live coals with frictional heat, it appears that even the adventurer Dee saw it for the first time. In other words, it hasn't permeated society. Even though you can make something like frictional heat anywhere if you rub your hands, it's in spite of that. It's probably because of the common knowledge that has strongly taken root in this world. It's likely that other than those mentioned, there are no other ways to light fires. I think it's precisely because I know of the modern-day science of my previous existence that I have this point of view, but what caught my attention was something not related to fire. There's a magic that I wasn't able to see due to the entrenched common knowledge. Is what it boils down to. I opened the intermediate-level magic guidebook that I had left beside me. It's a book that was bought yesterday and given to me, but when I read this book, there were several points that I took notice of. I'll try to experiment with them one by one. First, the area. It's written that the convention is to use shortening for the elementary level, but the ultimate aria is aria less for the intermediate level. Aria less is when you cause activation with only the end of the area. The spell name. It seems that diligence and talent are necessary to reach that stage. There's the impact, which I used yesterday on the goblins, but I got irritated at the area, stopped in the middle of it and fired the spell. The keyword of the area for impact is make the Marioku within you activate, condense it, and let it fly. That's what it's in terms of. If it was to follow what was written in the elementary level book, then it shouldn't activate, but it activated. It seems like it could be settled with the discussion on aria shortening, but it activated even though I had omitted the essential part of the aria at that time. To fly. I suspect that there's a hole there. At that time, other than throwing the ball of Marioku, I had mixed in the image of putting a high explosive projectile into a grenade launcher and launching it. Even though it's called magic, the weapons that I had become accustomed to in my previous existence had unconsciously interfered. The result? It gave off an impact that was far stronger than usual and neutralized the goblin. Even though the impact that I had been using up until that point was, at best, at the level of shaking a target, it had made the goblin's body float in the air for a second. That force is strange. What's crucial is not the area, but the mental image. The first time I used light, the photosphere moved at my visualization. In society, the impression that impact is of no attribute and is weak is the only one there is, and in practice it was weak. I started using it after I got Noelle to show me an example, so isn't that etched into my brain? I was thinking, what if I used it without seeing the example, but at any rate, let's try it out and see what happens. It is an experiment, so it'll be without an aria. What I'll visualize this time is an old-fashioned cannon in an embrasure with which I personally use a pull to pack in the gunpowder and ball inside it. I close my eyes and concentrate. I gather the flowing Marioku in my body and make it into a sphere shape and stand by. I point my hand in the direction of the target, and visualize the Marioku sphere enveloped by the bore. And then I pulled the trigger that came to mind. In an instant, there was feeling of Marioku lost together with a pan sound and the resounding sound of wood breaking. When I opened my eyes to see what had happened, the hanging target was broken into very small pieces and had tumbled down to the ground. I was astonished at the larger-than-expected power, but my hypothesis was correct. The spell can be altered by the mental image. Moreover, I didn't call out the spell name, let alone the aria, and there's also not much difference in the Marioku consumption. Truly revolutionary. However, there are still many more things that I want to do. The next thing to visualize is an automatic-style pistol. A handgun. The very first thing that occurs to me is a stable projectile weapon for short and medium ranges, and it's a pistol that can be held in place with one hand for easy precise shooting. I've used one for many years and am familiar with disassembling it, etc., so I can visualize it with ease. That's why it's the first thing that came to mind. My favorite was the Magnum, but after taking into consideration its strength, this time I visualized the common handgun. The important points are to make the bullet tapered in order for it to fly straight, and the grooves of the barrel that cause the bullet to rotate. The rifling. This time I focus on the tree target without closing my eyes, and in preparation, I erect my thumb and index finger on my hand in the shape of a handgun. Gather Marioku, bullet production, loading, rifling is okay, trigger. With *P show *, a thick sound reverberated, the tree that I aimed at shook a little, and a thumb-sized hole had been opened in the tree. I continued by gradually increasing the distance of the targets that I aim at. And I confirmed that there's not that much of a difference with both the firing range and power when compared to the real thing. In addition, there's no discharge sound and there's barely any recoil. The ballistic trajectory is even more stable than that of the real thing, and the Marioku consumption is also low. Its utility was so good that it would make one suspect. Isn't there a catch to this? As it was, I got carried away and tested various guns, but half of them misfired and nothing happened. Those that misfired were the guns that I had used less frequently, and accordingly, my visualization was tenuous. That's most likely the reason why it didn't activate. If I had the actual guns here, then I would have the very thing required. A mental image that knows each of the parts in detail. I continued to shoot while forming an hypothesis. I ran out of Marioku at around the time I exceeded 20 shots, so I stopped. The next experiment, while the lethargy is assaulting my body, is meditation. This isn't magic, but it's one of the actions through which Marioku can be quickly recovered. Marioku naturally recovers as time passes. This is because people unconsciously absorb the Marioku throughout the air, and then convert it to a nature that matches their own. Meditation is a conscious action via which to speed up that natural recovery power. The method is just to relax, seize the Marioku with your whole body, and take it in. Becoming able to seize Marioku seems to be an obstacle of the elementary level, and because of that, it's mentioned in the intermediate level book. I think of Zazen when I hear of meditation, but it seems like it's alright as long as I can relax, so I lay down in the shape of the Da Kanji. I close my eyes and seize the Marioku. Seize. How do I do that? Seizing a substance that doesn't exist in my previous life? Therefore, there's no choice but to lay my hands on it by groping around. In the first place, Marioku is not visible to the eye, although it's certainly possible to feel a mysterious energy at the time of magic activation. In other words, it'll be fine if I can feel a sensation similar to this energy from the air. I direct my senses towards the outside and try searching for Marioku. 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 I unintentionally jumped up. I was dozing off in the middle of it, but that sensation was unmistakably Marioku. I'm going to do it once more before I forget it. I close my eyes again, but this time I was mysteriously able to sense it with ease. It was like a switch being flipped. I felt an exhilarating sensation. As if my own seal was undone and I had gotten free. I recognize it. It's overflowing throughout the air, and even now it's gently brushing my body, like fog would. So this is Marioku. Is this what they call seizing the Marioku? As there's also nobody to tell me if I'm right, let's go to the next thing. Continuing on, taking in Marioku is written, but that's the very thing that I don't understand. It's not like taking a deep breath will work, so I had once again run into an obstacle. While groaning with an asterisk unin asterisk, I attempted various things, but to no avail. Mood taking it in. Is there a sensory organ that the people of this world have for that? If there is, then I also should have one. But take in the Marioku and convert the overflowing Marioku to one's own color. Convert. I became able to sense it and I realized it. Doesn't this Marioku throughout the air resemble the Marioku that I personally let out? It's a feeling like the red within the color red, the tree within the forest. And now, the current me is exhausted of Marioku and in a state close to a vacuum. It's not taking it in, but how about attuning my Marioku to my surroundings? I lie down once again, and I take things as they are, thinking of nothing. Towards a clear and serene mind. Serious Sama. What's the matter? As I was about to reach that stage, I was shouted at by Noel. Well, one would be surprised if someone were to drop to the ground right in the center of the yard. To indicate I was okay, I waved my hand to Noel, who was rushing over here, but without stopping her momentum, she came over and looked into my face. Are you alright? As I thought there were some after effects from yesterday's incident. Calm down. I was only meditating. Look, here. To Noel, who is a moderate if left alone, I slapped my hand onto the page where meditation was written. Noelle started to read the page with a wondering look on her face, but she was smiling awkwardly after she had finished reading. Anyo Serious Sama. This is the intermediate level, isn't it? Are you able to do this? I was able to seize it, however I don't really get how to take it in. I'm at a stalemate right now. Not at all. Even that is enough to be too amazing. Because it's something that originally takes several years of learning from a teacher before one can finally do that. Being able to do this much by self-studying that. Self-study. I received instruction from Noel, didn't I? Not at all. Someone like me is at the novice level of the elementary level. I'd only showed you magic, by no means can say that I taught you. I was able to reach this point because you showed me magic. Who did Noelle receive her instruction from? There was a person who originally was a magic teacher that came to my hometown. I was taught by that person. You might not be able to tell, but it seems like I had the best aptitude within the village, and I was even encouraged to attend school. So there are schools that teach magic. There are. However, a large amount of money is required for the matriculation. My village was poor, and so was my family, so I had to give up the idea of going to school. Therefore I only studied the basics, and I left my hometown in order to work away from home. I think she's yearning for her hometown. Noelle narrows her eyes and looked into the distance. Sorry. That was a bit insensitive of me. I had just become a little nostalgic, so please don't worry about it. Besides, I am happy right now. Arya-sama, Arina-san, D-san, and Sirius-sama. I am so glad that I was able to meet you all. I feel a little bit fulfilled at the sincere smile of a young lady of marriageable age. All in all, I'm indebted to this child, and I sincerely want her to be happy. However, you are 100 years too early for such things like Oni-chan's worries. No matter how much you say that it is because you understand various things, it is because you are still a child that I say that. That's certainly true. But even if you, who usually has their clumsiness at full throttle, say that, there's no persuasive power in it. In my opinion, she's something like a little sister who needs looking after. As thanks for that smile, I'll let you accompany me in my experiment. I'll keep that in mind. By the way, I wonder if Noelle is free right now. Yes, I am free. I've reached a point where I can take a break from my work, so I came to see how Sirius-sama was doing. Well then, it also acts as an experiment, but I'll show you something interesting. once my Marioku has recovered. In order to try out the next idea, I was thinking of the amount of Marioku required and then I noticed it. My Marioku is recovering. It's only been about several minutes since I had exhausted my Marioku, and even the meditation I did just now was, in the end, the same as if not doing it all. Usually it recovers after several hours, but I thought that I had only dozed off for a moment. Had I actually fallen asleep for quite a while? Is something wrong? Iya. As my Marioku had recovered, I was sort of concentrating. Your recovery is really quick. It's also quick for me, even though it takes me half a day. Let's put that aside for now. Being able to make my Marioku dry up and trying it again is a good thing. This time it's string enhancement. It seems extremely helpful as a rope, but its practical usability is too low in its present state. If I bundle them together, then that itself appears to be usable, but I might as well try and complete it by making it into something strong and secure. What I visualize is something called Kevlar thread, and even among the aramid fibers, it's the strongest tier of threads. It's also employed in bulletproof vests, and even though it also has a thickness of less than 1 mm, it has a tensile strength of 60 kilograms, is an excellent scientific material. Bundling these in multiple layers, I create one toughened rope. It didn't particularly have to be rope. Chains or wires would have been fine, but Marioku has a soft image to it, so I decided to make it rope. I'm going to use string a little, so could you pull on that for me? You know that sort of thing will snap in no time, right? It'll be fine. It's a somewhat of a unique one, so it won't easily snap. I leave Noelle, who currently has a half-convinced face, as is an activate string. It's invisible, but when I tried to detect it, Marioku in the shape of a thick rope grew from the palm of my hand. Okay, here. The feeling that there wasn't an aria just now. I didn't say the spell name, let alone an aria. I ignored Noelle, who appears to be puzzled, and I let her take hold of the tip of that which is extending from the palm of my hand. Don't worry, rather than that, hurry and pull. I don't mind even if you pull with all your might. Like I said, it'll snap. There's something different. Well then, here I go. Perhaps having realized something at the sensation of the rope that she felt in her hand, her face had taken a complete change. With a serious face, she had started to pull the rope. I also put my strength into it and pull, but the Marioku rope did not move at all. It's a success. Perhaps it's because of the Marioku. It's a strange rope that doesn't creak or bend, but its strength is nearly perfect. However, I made just one blunder. Whoa. Serious-sama, overmatched in strength, I was completely dragged around by Noelle. Well, I have been training, but I'm still 3 years old, so it can't be helped. After that, I hang it on a tree and climb up it. As a result of having used it as a substitute for the chains of a swing, I concluded that it's sufficiently able to be fit for practical use. If I vary its thickness, it's serviceable for various practical uses. It's not an all-purpose tool, but an all-purpose magic. Perhaps as a result of bundling multiple layers of Marioku threads together, I get the feeling that the Marioku consumption is a bit high. Nevertheless, as it wasn't to the degree of exhausting my Marioku, let's stop at around this point for now and head back. It's about time for lunch, isn't it? Yes, it is. I have become hungry. My hand was grasped by Noelle and we returned to the house. En route, I was asked this question while we were chatting. What does Serious-sama want to do in the future? In the future, I can be proud of the Serious-sama who is able to produce such amazing magic. I've become curious as to what that Serious-sama wants to do when he grows up. You're right, I wonder what I should do. I am being way too hasty, aren't I? Please forget about it. It's been 3 years since I received this new life. Several times has the thought of what exactly do I want to do came to me. The me of my previous existence had a bloody life, but I think I passed away satisfied because it was an end where I had accomplished my mission. That's why I also barely had any regrets, but there's something that I recalled after hearing the talk about school from Noelle. I had 5 apprentices. I can't recall their names, but there were 5 of them. Girls and boys that I myself gathered and educated with my own hands. For me, who had neither parents nor a wife, they were, in a way, something like a family. It's possibly my sole regret that I wasn't able to watch over all of their futures, as their she-show, and in place of their parents. It's not just to become strong, this time I want to properly watch over them. I saw the future that I'm aiming for. After lunch, I began to talk to everyone gathered in the living room. I'm thinking of trying to go to school. At my one utterance, 3 people were exchanging glances while at a loss. It was particularly bad for Noel, who had a pale face, saying, "I've gone and done it." Is it perhaps because of what I said? With my words, "Serious Sama's future, it's not your fault." It's something that I thought about and decided on my own. Calm down, Noel. So, why does Serious Sama want to go to school? It's not like I've already settled on it, but I want to become an educator. In this world, death is taken lightly. There are many countries that haven't been unified, and there are numerous stories of confrontations between the races and religions that are jumbled together. Conflicts are a repeated occurrence, and demons being rampant, it's a world with little safety. However, those things is nothing more than information that I discovered in books. For that reason, I want to travel the world, see and feel various things in reality, and teach my existing techniques to others as an educator. Broadly itemizing it: attend school and learn about the society, take a trip to get acquainted with the world, be an educator. That kind of flow. The person I saw in my dreams taught various things to children. Although he experienced hardship, he felt that it was immensely worthwhile, and it became something that I also want to do. In order to do that, I should first go to school for the sake of broadening my knowledge. Sure enough, if that's the case, then going to school is necessary. However, Serious Sama's attribute is. I guess the point is that I don't have an attribute, and that's a problem. I could easily imagine being called an incompetent and looked upon with eyes of contempt if it were to be discovered. The attendants were frowning, but only Noel nodded with a serious face. I think it'll be okay. What has come over you, Noel? Even though you're the one who understands the suffering of being isolated. Isolation, discrimination due to differences in race. She's cheerfully smiling now, but I wonder if she had a hard time in the past. Actually, Serious Sama showed me his magic earlier. It was just one, but the skill was one that someone like me couldn't hold a candle to. Besides, there's also other spells in addition to that, right? Given that the assertive Noel asked that in my direction, I nodded for the time being. If I repeated the experiment, then it would appear as if I'm able to do it as many times as I wanted, but the gun spells would likely make them afraid, so I keep silent. He also already comprehends half of the intermediate level magic, and to be honest, I can't imagine just how much he will have matured after 5 more years. It seems like if someone was to pick a fight with him, he would turn the tables on them. That's right. If I get attacked, then I'll attack them back. I've said it many times, but I believe that Serious Sama will undoubtedly make a name for himself in the future. That's why I'll also want to do what I am able to do for him. That's right, it's just as you say. We attendants only serve for the sake of the head of the household. Besides, it's Serious Sama's first willful request, I want to grant it. Yeah? Let's do our best. Me, too. I certainly feel bad for the 3 of them who have roused themselves to action for my sake. But, well, I'll presume upon these people's benevolence for now. I had intended to lightly say things like educator and all, but it's a bit embarrassing being so stupendously praised. But I will grow up so that I'm able to live up to those expectations. Thank you, everyone. But there are 5 years, so let's not overdo it. Thank you for your concern. First is the entrance fee. While selling my compounded medicines, we will make up the insufficiency in funds. Selling will be me. I will check up on the school-related things in advance. It would be a waste for Serious Sama's talents to end here. Is what a wildly enthusiastic Noel said, but she looked lonely for an instant and I heard her murmur. Although I had completely given up on it. Oh, I see. Perhaps Noelle's enthusiasm is from having overlapped her past self with me. Not being able to attend school herself was probably a regret of hers. It looks like it will get busy from now on. Before that, Dee, give that to Serious-sama. Understood. Dee went and left the living room, returned after a short time, and that hand of his was grasping a sword. He handed me that sword, and because he was with his eyes calling for me to extract the sword, I pulled out the blade. This is a sword that I procured around the time when I was an adventurer. If it's with this, then even against goblin opponents it won't break. So please accept it. A sparse pattern is set into the 50-centimeter length of the blade, and it has a rustic handle. It's a short sword with not one ornament on it. It's a bit big for me, as a 3-year-old child, to use, but I was pleased with its exterior that stressed utility. However, this sword's blade isn't iron. It's strong and solid but comparatively light. Swords are outside my area of expertise, but this isn't something that is sold everywhere. It's a weapon that somehow seems awfully good, but is it alright for me to accept it? Not a problem. Because I am no longer an adventurer, and it's short for me, so this sword is one that I was keeping as a spare. I found that sword in the depths of a certain ruin, but it was too light to use it as a sword, so I took charge of it without being given a second glance by anyone. There was an occasion when I showed it to a weapons shop, but the qualities of its materials was unknown. I kept it as an omamori, but if it's for the current Serious-sama, I think it's a weapon that's just right. Ooh, it's the first time Dee has been this talkative. As he said, thinking about it in terms of the importance of its visual aspect, rather than handling it as a weapon, it's just about right for self-protection. I'm not quite familiar with the sword, but it's not like it's cursed, so I'll gratefully accept it. Please take this. It is a belt to hang your sword on. Thank you. I will use it with great care. You look cool, Serious-sama. With this, you are a splendid adventurer. Dee is pleased with my expression of gratitude. The shape of his mouth slightly breaks into a smile. The adjustments to the size of the belt is also completed. If I equip this, then an adventurer is what I look like. There's no way that I do. It's impossible for a 3-year-old. Serious-sama, you now possess a weapon, but please, never do anything unreasonable. I know. What I did yesterday was me being impelled by necessity. Nevertheless, once I've become strong, I intend to fight goblins again. I want you to avoid fighting as much as you can, but you do need the experience. However, next time, I ask that you please bring Dee with you without fail. She is probably racked with worry, but Arina-san is holding that back and encouraging me. I think she really is a person of character. Wanting me to bring Dee with me, it's the least I could do for her, isn't it? Things like goblins would only take a moment if I used gun spells, but to defeat them directly, I want to regain the abilities of my previous life. I'm not inclined to repeat such a disgraceful fight. Being showered with blood backsplatter with reckless abandon and only being able to defeat 2 at the same time. Defeating 3 of them without getting covered in blood, that's the standard by which I could have done it while humming without any concern, if it was my previous self. Using magic is fine. But I won't mature by being dependent on magic, in particular my gun spells. They're too powerful. If I really wanted to, then I think that sniping from a very long distance away would be feasible, but as a risk factor, there's also the possibility of me becoming pursued if it's discovered. Other than the times when it's necessary, let's go with hiding it as much as possible. I'll usually have to make do with other magic and taijutsu. This is how I was surrounded by understanding people, and the need to restrain my growth disappeared. I also acquired the unknown power called magic, and looked forward to just how high I could go. Well then. From now on it's real training.